Welcome to the Phase Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Terryl Humphrey, and today we're going to talk about why putting your money to work is the most critical thing that you can ever done. Over the last half a decade, I produced over 893 podcast episodes. And every episode, I learned something new. Every episode, I discovered myself. Every episode, I got a little bit better. But before the 893 podcast episodes, I had to learn how to put my money to work, and that's what this video is going to speak about. Disclaimer: this is not financial advice. This is not financial channel. This is a podcast live stream about things that I've done, and I want to bring you along the journey so that way you can see that it's possible, what I've done, and what you can start applying today. So, if you're new to here, like I always say, get your pen, get your notebook, because today is the most critical information that you're going to receive. Because this is information that we're speaking about today. So first thing first, let me go ahead and share my screen. First thing first, put your money to work. In other words, invest in yourself. And I'll tell you this, I tell you a little story a while ago. Hold on. Half a decade ago, in 2021, I heard a lot of people talk about how investing in yourself is important, how investing in your growth, your education is so critical. And during that time, I was like, well, why is that important? Why should you invest into yourself? Well, the people that I was watching, people that I was around, well, not necessarily around, but people I was watching online, YouTube, and just in general, they say you have to invest in yourself because there's some information that you do not know. There's some information that you not aware of. In addition to that, there are people that you don't know. So when you invest into yourself, you are putting money to work on yourself. When I started putting money into myself and I started to get educated, I started to develop the skill, I got the education, I put the time into it. The money is just one aspect of it. You have to also consider the time that it takes for you to understand what you're doing. It takes me a long time to understand something. So if I'm spending $10 for a course and the $10 that I put into the course doesn't teach me something, well, what I'm looking for is something to apply today. You see, investing in yourself is helping you apply information today. Hold on. Investing in yourself helps you apply new information. I used to think whenever somebody say that they spent X amount of money on their education, on their self-development, on their personal development, I'm like, why did you have to say that amount? But then I started investing into myself, and it's like, hey man, there's so many different things that you don't know. But then when you start to put time, energy, and money to work, is literally like it gives you a different perspective. The perspective that it gives you, that it shows you that it's possible. Okay. I never disclosed this. I never shared this online. I don't know if I want to share it now. However, I spent tens of thousands of dollars on my education. And majority of it was through credit cards. Majority of it was through personal loans. Majority of it was like, man, I got to pay back this money. But I tell you what, the biggest thing that I ever done was take the money and apply it to myself, to invest in myself. It wasn't the fact that it was the money that was a challenge. It was more so understanding that the money that I'm spending, eventually I would get it back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. It's completely different than investing in the stock market. Again, this is not financial advice. What I'm saying is that the return doesn't come as quickly, okay? When you invest into yourself, the return is not going to come quickly. When you put money into yourself, you're not going to understand where this money is going to come back from. But what does happen, you get more smarter. What does happen, you get more brighter. What does happen, you have more ideas. You see, it doesn't matter how you invest the money, invest in yourself. It matters that you put time, energy, and money to work on yourself. Hold on. Jim Rohn said this. He said, learn to work harder on yourself than you do your job. Because when you work hard on yourself, you develop skills. Let me write this down right quick. You develop skill. You develop education. You develop a know-how. You develop connections. Connections is very important. you develop, let's say, a system, or in other words, steps. Okay? In other words, when you invest in yourself, the opportunity is not in front of you. The opportunity has yet to come. Hold on. Check this out. See, it has yet to come because when you put your money to work, you are learning how to use what you have. Hold on. When you use what you have, check this out. You use, that's not even how you spell use. When you use what you have, people start to see your growth. Hold on. What's going on? People start to see your growth. You see, it's not the fact that the money is a thing. Money is not money. You need money to survive, but I tell you this, when you start to put the money towards your education, towards yourself, towards your skill, sometimes things are not, you just can't hold the education, right? You just can't hold the knowledge that you have or the skill that you have. You can't show what you have until you are ready to prove what you have. You see, 893 podcast episodes is just a number. But before I got to 893 podcast episodes, I started with 1. Then I went to 2, then I went to 3, then over time, I started investing to equipment. Like, and when you start to see the difference from when I started to now, I started with my phone. In fact, the tripod that I had wasn't even that tall. It wasn't even that long. Now I got tripods that go, that's a little bit taller than me. But what I had to do is that I had to start with what I had. Hold on. I'll give you a visual image of it. You see this right here, this is not that big. But what it matters is that I'm using what I have. You see, when I started back in the day, I started with this. I started like this. It was me. It was a table. It was a tripod. What's tripod look like? Oh yeah, tripod. I forgot what a tripod looked like. And it wasn't tall enough. It was short. So I had to get books underneath it. So right underneath it was 3 books. 3 books. Wasn't that big, but however, these were the books that I used. 3 books. You see, the investment came from me using what I had. You see, I had 3 books. I bought 3 books a long time ago. And when I bought these 3 books, it gave me some type of like some type of extra cushion. When I put the tripod on top of the books, it wasn't that tall, but it wasn't that short either. Excuse me. What happened is that I literally put money into a tripod, put money into the books that I had, and I learned how to use what I had. Over time, I got good. Over time, I got great. Over time, I developed a skill that I still use today. It's not the fact that the equipment is a thing. It's more so when you put your money to work, you are learning to invest in yourself. It's like when you go to college. See, I'm in college. I'm going to college for business management, and I'm in another program for entrepreneurship at a college. So I'm constantly educating myself. I'm constantly investing in myself. I'm constantly putting time, energy, and effort into myself. You see, just because I'm in school doesn't mean that it's not getting paid. What it does mean is that since I was in the military, I'm able to go to school and the government pay for it. Nonetheless, somebody's paying for it. Okay, hold on. Somebody is paying for it. But I tell you this. If it wasn't for the government, even before I even joined the military, I went to school, but check this out. I had to take out student loans. And when I took out the loan, I went to school to better myself. I went to school to learn what I want to do. I went to school to understand that there's something different, right? And I tell you this. What's going on, Regina? If I said that right. I tell you this, it's not the fact that the money was a thing. No. When you go to school, take out a loan, that's considered money. You might not be paying that money, but you paying the money with your time. You have to learn how to invest into yourself. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's effort, sometimes it's all of the above, but it doesn't matter. What does matter is that you learn how to invest into yourself. Hold on. Check me out. You see, when you invest in yourself, by any means possible. And with this, it's like a saying, and I tell you a quick story about any means. When I first started, like a half a decade ago, I had the idea that BAM was gonna be my slogan. BAM was gonna be like the thing that I was gonna be like focusing on. So I got to telling people about it. I got to calling my friends, my childhood friends, and I was like, man, what y'all think it is? And I was like, BAM, by any means. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. I like that. And then one of my friends from back home that was like, have you researched if it was already taken? I said, nah, why I gotta do that? I said, because in my mind, this was something that I knew was going to work. Like, by any means, you got to make it happen. By any means, you have to do the work. By any means, it doesn't matter if you're going to fail. By any means possible, you're going to show up. I tell you this. Hold on. I looked it up. I went on Google, typed in by any means, press enter, and I saw that BAM was taken. Man, I was devastated. I was heartbroken. I was like, I thought that was the one. You see, when you invest into yourself, sometimes that investment doesn't come back instantly. So I left the house, and when I left the house, I'm like, I need to go on a drive. I need to clear my mind because I thought I had the best idea there ever was. I'm literally like, I need to go drive. So I get in my car and I drive. Walmart was maybe 15 minutes from where we stayed at, and I got in the car and I drove. And I'm looking at the billboards. I'm on the freeway. I'm looking. When I get to Walmart, I'm just looking at the signs. I'm reading. I'm trying to get the idea. In the Marine Corps, there's a thing called acronyms. Like, there's so many different acronyms in the Marine Corps. And when I did this, I didn't even recognize that it was an acronym that I was trying to look for. Nonetheless, as I'm looking around, I saw something that said wisdom. I said, ooh, I like that. Then I got thinking, I was like, okay, wisdom. Ooh, wisdom is knowledge. Then I was about to check out, went to checkout lane. Then I asked one of the workers, I said, hey, excuse me, sorry to bother you. I said, does this make sense? I'm trying to like figure out if it sounds good or whatnot. And I was like, does this make sense? I was like, wisdom is knowledge. She thought about it. She was like, ain't that the same thing? I said, it is. I said, oh, I wouldn't think, sure, let's say that. Good point, good question. So I leave Walmart. I don't even know what I grabbed at the time. I bought it, put it in the bag, went to the car, and I got back on the freeway. I'm doing the same exact thing that I did when I went there. As I'm leaving, I'm doing the same exact thing. Looking at the billboards, looking, trying to get an idea. Nothing was coming. I go back home, and as soon as I pull in, something said something about failure. Okay. What's the failure of, what's the opposite of failure? Failure. Hold on. Knowledge. Huh. Knowledge. Wait, is that the opposite of failure? So I went on Google, typed in, what's the opposite of failure? Then it gave me the options. I was like, okay, let me ask a different question. Is knowledge the opposite of failure? That was like, yeah. Google was like, yeah, gave me the explanation of it as well. And I was like, okay, failure is knowledge. Hold on, wait. Failure is knowledge. Failure is knowledge. Hold on. Failure is not. So I go in the house and I write it on the refrigerator. It was like a little small little board. And I wrote on the board, failure is knowledge. And I took a step back. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, does this make sense? In my mind, I think it makes sense. But then, as I'm looking at it, I get feedback. Somebody came in and they looked at the refrigerator. I said, does this make sense? That was like, yeah. I said, for real? That was like, yeah. I said, nah. That was like, yeah. I said, hold on. I'm into something. See, what I was into was that I was learning how to invest into myself. I was learning how to invest into my thoughts. I was learning how to invest into my ideas. You see, it wasn't the fact that BAM was taken. I just had to get more creative. Then when I start to watch different podcast conversations, listen to different books, read different books, people talk a lot about failure, but no one has ever said failure is knowledge. So many people said failure is, I think somebody actually said failure is wisdom this one time. Let me see. Failure is a part of the journey. Failure is the lesson. Failure is this, failure is that. No one has ever said failure is knowledge. And when I got to hearing it, I literally was like, oh, I think I got something. I think I have something, because I don't think a lot of people was talking about this. I don't think a lot of people is trying to say knowledge. Oh, they're trying to say knowledge, but they haven't phrased the terminology knowledge. What happened is that it gave me a sense of, I think I figured it out. This is the thing. Failure is knowledge. This is the thing that I'm going to focus on. You see, when I put the money to work, it was me putting my ideas to work. You see, money is just one aspect of it. Time, energy, effort. You have to learn how to put your ideas to work, because your ideas will create revenue. Then when I did that, I was like, oh, I like that. When I actually put it on some clothes, it was like, oh, this is different. It was different because it was something new. It was different because it was an investment. It was different because it was something that I discovered. You see, money is just one aspect of it. When you understand that there's many aspects behind the money, the time, the energy, the idea, the creativity, all these different things, you have to be willing to invest the time into yourself. Hold on. Let me come back to the screen. You see, by any means possible, you got 24 hours in a day. You got 12, you got 3, you got 6, you got 9. You got 24 hours in a day. 24 hours in a day. What is 156 per week? 156 per week. Just to confirm, I'm going to do a calculation, because I think that's right, but I'm not for sure. Hold on. What I say? 24 times 7. Yeah, 168. Oh, 168. 168. Okay. With this time per week, let me go ahead and finish the clock. Right quick. Okay, you got right here. Let's say it's 115. 115-ish. You got 24 hours in the day. And whatever you do with that time matters, because you have to learn how to invest the right time into yourself. Okay. As I start to learn how to invest time into myself, the money came right after. Like, the money was like, yeah, I got extra dollars. I'm going to spend on myself to see what I can learn. I'm going to go to this college. I remember I was taking a history class, and I went right after work, right after I got off of work. I went because I was trying to better myself. I went because I wanted something different. I went just because I wanted to learn something. In addition to that, I'm glad I did that, because the time that I invested into myself, I was able to pass that class. I was able to not only pass that class, but be in a better position for when I go back to class later on in the years. Okay, why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because when you learn how to invest into yourself, it doesn't matter if it's money, it doesn't matter if it's time, doesn't matter if it's energy, doesn't matter if it's effort, doesn't matter all these different things. What does matter is that you start to invest in yourself little by little, time by time, money by money. Eventually, everything will start to make sense. Okay. Why? Because you are invested into your journey. Oh, that was hard. What a good segue. Hold on. Point number 2, when you invest into yourself, you are investing into your development. In other words, learn much as possible. There you go. Point number 2, learn much as possible. Okay, Hold on. When you learn, let me come back to the screen. Hold on. As you learn much as possible, you start to develop more. Okay, what is development? It's kind of like you have a seed, right? You have a little seed. Let me come back to the drawing board because this is a great example. So you got a little seed right here, right? This right here is called hope. Hope, in other words, is a seed, right? Seed. So now, since you have hope, you have a seed that's in your hand. In the Bible, it referenced a mustard seed. And shout out to not my twin brother Tim, but my other brother Tim. And before I left Little Rock, Arkansas, he told me this. He said, man, Terrell, he was like, bro, you gotta check this out. He was like, always remember this. He said, you gotta have faith like a mustard seed. He said, bro, you know how big a mustard seed is? I said, no. He said, it can barely fit in your palm of your hand. But when you have faith like the mustard seed, you will eventually start to see it grow. Okay. Shout out to not my twin brother Tim, but my brother Tim back in Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. When you have hope, you have planted the seed. Okay. When you plant the seed, you need something for it to go under, right? So this right here is called the dirt. And right underneath it, right here, is called layers, right? Now, I'm not good in science, but I'm good in using analogies in life. So this might seem like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to science. Nonetheless, I am not that good because and when I was going to college, for physical therapy or kinesiology, I changed my major just so I wouldn't have to take a lot of sciences. Nonetheless, I digress. Okay, so anywho, when this seed right here, when this hope gets planted in the dirt, right? You have to understand that it's planted from you. Guess what? Having hope. And as it's getting planted, here's what happened that I didn't really understand that was happening to me. As I invested into myself, I started to develop, learn, and get more educated. When you plant the seed of hope, your roots starts to grow underneath it, right? Your roots starts to grow around it. Your roots doesn't grow until time has passed by, right? You don't see the growth. You don't see the development. You don't see the lessons learned. What happened is that when you plant this seed of faith inside the ground, it gets planted. Okay. When it gets planted, development happens. You don't see the growth. You see, half a decade ago when I started the Phase Knowledge podcast, I literally started with hope. My goal was to help others become the best version of themselves. I didn't know any business terminology, any mission statements, or anything of the nature. I literally knew that my goal was to help people become the best version of themselves. That seed of hope was planted. After 893 podcast episodes, the message is still the same, but I just say it a little bit differently, right? We help, what is it? We help entrepreneurs, small business owners turn setbacks into success. Our mission is helping others become the best version of themselves. Why is that important? That's important because the seed got planted, the seed of hope got planted a half a decade ago. The roots that was growing, the strength that was growing, the education that was growing, the foundation that was growing. You see, all came from one piece of action when I started to record my first video. That video gave me confidence that I'm able to make a difference. Hold on, check this out. You see, that difference that I was looking to make, it came from that hope of seed, or the seed of hope. Once it's planted and it starts to grow, eventually, you will start to see something come out the ground. Eventually, you will start to see what that thing that's growing underneath it, what that seed of hope is producing. Because as it's producing, you're getting better, you're getting stronger, you're getting wiser, you're getting more. You're gaining more information. You see, when you invest into yourself, you are learning the investment that you are putting into yourself. Hold on. It's not the fact that the investment is a waste. It's not the fact that the time is a waste. It's not the fact that your effort is a waste. It's just a matter of time before you start to break through. As I started to break through after 893 podcast episodes, I've learned I was breaking through the unknown. I've learned I was breaking through the uncertainty. I've learned that I was learning how to have a podcast production business. When you put your money to work, you are learning to invest into yourself. When it grows from the ground, this right here, as it's growing from the ground, growth never stops. Now, you might have to replace the seed, but growth never stops. Excuse me. What's going on? 2-4 season in? I don't know what that means. I can't see everybody else's names and stuff like that, but I appreciate y'all for joining in so far. So, hold on. So when the plan has been developed, let me come back to the screen. As the plan is developed, you start to understand everything that you're doing. When I planted this seed of hope a half a decade ago, this seed of hope has grown. The foundation has grown. You see, the audience has grown. It's not the fact that the seed wasn't planted. It's more so as it's planted, I continue to build on top of it. I continue to invest the money. I continue to invest the time. I continue to invest the effort. It doesn't stop. There's no limitations to my growth. And when you learn as much as possible, you discover everything that you don't know. Nonetheless, when you discover what you don't know, you start to learn everything that you did not know in the beginning. Not to say that you know everything, but what I am saying is that you know more than you have, you know more than you know now today, because you started when you started. When you put your money to work, you are literally investing to yourself. When you learn as much as possible, things start to make sense. Like, why does this go here? Why does that go here? Why does this happen? You start to ask questions, and check this out. The questions that you're asking, you start to answer them yourself. Hold on. You see, you start to answer the question yourself, because that foundation that you have been building, the foundation that you have been growing on, the foundation that you have established, it only comes from you putting your money to work, putting your time to work, putting your effort to work, putting your energy to work. You see, there's so many different things that people don't talk about. Nonetheless, as I'm talking about it, I'm talking about the journey that I've been on, and hoping that you apply the same skills and knowledge as well, because it starts with one thing. It starts with one video, and then you start to learn why that video is important. Then you start to learn the impact that it's making. Then you start to learn why it's a change maker. You see, it's a change maker because it's something that you are doing. Hold on. Last point we're gonna hit about. So what we just spoke about. Last 2 points that we just spoke about was, one, you have to invest into yourself. When you invest into yourself, it's just not money. It's time, energy, effort. So many different things that goes into it rather than money, but you have to learn how to invest into yourself. Next point we talk about is that you have to learn as much as possible. When you plant that seed of hope, you're learning the hope that you're building, because the foundation that you're growing comes from that seed of hope. Last thing that we are going to talk about is this, okay? Know that it's not, let me come back to the screen. It's not easy. Why is it not easy? You see, okay, prime example. I have a water bottle, empty water bottle. I have some water bottle. Okay, hold on. Let me come back to the screen. Hold on. Let me come back to the screen. I accidentally drank all this water because I was thirsty. And I got into it. This right here was an investment to me not being thirsty, right? I didn't know I would need 2 investments because the first investment wasn't enough. Nonetheless, the second investment might be more than enough. Okay, why is that important? Okay, hold on. Let me put that down. That's important because you never know where your investment is going to lead you. But when you invest into yourself, that investment has been planted. When I drink the water, I get hydrated. As I continue to communicate, I get dehydrated. So now the second water bottle, which was the one that has more water in it, I'm able to drink more water. I'm able to stay more hydrated. I'm able to make sure that my throat doesn't get dry. Why? Because I'm doing a lot of talking. You see that investment in the first water bottle. Hold on. You see, I dropped it. I got so excited. You see, the investment in the first water bottle wasn't good enough. I'm going to put that right there. Hopefully it stands up. But see, that second investment into the water bottle, you see, this one is almost full. It ain't almost full. Yeah, it's almost full. It ain't full, but it's almost full. It'll do for the rest of the presentation. But I'll tell you this. If it wasn't for both investments, one investment wouldn't have been enough. Okay. Hold on. Check this out. What that means is this. You have to know that it's not easy. Okay, when I started a half a decade ago, I started like this. Here's my start. I had 2 cameras on the back, a tripod, 3 books, a table that wasn't that big, and I'm up here. Oh, hold on. It kind of look even, but it ain't even. It ain't even, coach. Hold on. But I'm up. Oh, not right there. Too far. Okay, hold on. I'm up here. There we go. And the camera is still short. Okay. I started with what I had. And invested to get better. It's not the fact that me getting better came from money. No, absolutely not. Because a lot of credit card debt, I'm still in credit card debt. Hey, but what I've learned is that I'm committed. By any means possible, I'm willing to make it happen. It doesn't matter how long it take me. It doesn't matter if it take me 5 years, half a decade. It doesn't matter if it take me 10 years. It doesn't matter if it take me 15 years. I don't know what that is. It doesn't matter if it take me 2 decades. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that I continue to do the work. It won't be easy, but as you get better, you learn how to invest in yourself more. You learn how to perfect your craft, how to practice more, how to communicate better, how to develop the skills, how to develop the stories. You see, I've learned how to put the story together to make it simple to understand. So you're telling me 893 podcast episodes later, X amount of money later, doesn't demonstrate the focus of investing into myself? You see, it matters because when I start to get in front of people start to say, man, you're really good at this. But they don't see when I was bad at this. But they don't see when I failed a lot at this. But they don't see that how the failure caused me to become better. You see, the reason why I talk a lot about failure is knowledge, because failure is the starting point. You're not going to know everything. On the contrary, when you learn everything, there's still a lot of information that you don't know. But it's more information that you knew when you started out. Okay. Now I've learned a few things. Okay. I've learned a few things when it comes to podcast creation, podcast production, right? First thing first, record everything. I say record everything. And the reason why you want to record everything, because you never know the footage that you're going to need. And then when you record everything, learn editing skills. You see, the skills that you learn for your podcast is going to always stay with you, no, regardless of the industry that you're in. You see, when you learn editing skills, you're learning the format of storytelling. How are people connected? Why do they connect? And how can you get better? You see, I've gotten better at crafting my story. Next point was crafts your story. Everybody got a story, okay? Everybody has a moment. Okay, everybody ain't sharing their story. You see, with the podcast production, it forces people to share their story. And the reason why I use the word forces because people get onto platforms and they start to share their story even more. Okay. You see, those are a few things that I've learned over the half a decade. 893 podcast episodes later, X amount of money spent on myself because I've learned how to invest into myself. Money is just one aspect of it. Okay. Hold on. Money is just one aspect of it. But don't leave out the time that it takes for you to understand what you're doing, the questions that you have because of the uncertainty, the skills that you might have lacked in the beginning that you might develop now, the communication that you needed to learn that you are learning now. You see, there's so many different layers in business. I used the word layers in the beginning of the presentation on step number 2. When I was speaking about the seed of hope, you have layers. There's layers to discover. Just like an onion. When you cut an onion, they got different layers. But if you don't take the onion and run underneath cold water, you're going to be crying as you cut the layers. You see, in life, the failures are the layers because you have to cut through the lessons. As you cut through the lessons, you start to understand the knowledge that's on the other side of the lessons that you are cutting through. Failure is only a start because it helps you learn what you're doing. So just to recap, in today's video, today's live stream, we've covered how to put your money to work. First point that we talked about is invest into yourself. When you invest into yourself, apply the new information. When the next point that we talk about is learn much as possible because you don't know everything, and yet you know more today because of the investment that you're putting into yourself. Last point that we talked about was to know that it's not easy. It is not going to be easy, but what it is going to be is challenging. And just because it's challenging doesn't mean you can't be successful. Doesn't mean you can't succeed. Doesn't mean you won't succeed. What it does mean is that you have to learn how to turn that failure into knowledge. So this has been great. Let me know your biggest takeaway on why putting your money to work is important. I love to read comments, love to engage with it. And lastly, don't be afraid to fail. Because failure is knowledge, and you never know the lessons you're going to learn. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you in the following video.